When it comes to darkness, there are different levels. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly, when it comes to the mu'mineen, He helps them out, to come out from the darkness towards the nur, depending on their levels. It's interesting that in Surah number 5, ayat 16, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the same function and role for Rasulullah. In Ayat al-Kursi, He says, يُخْرِجُهُم مِّنَ الظُّلَمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. Allah is the one who does that. But in Surah Ma'idah, ayat 16, He says, after praising the Prophet, He says, وَيُخْرِجُهُم مِّنَ الظُّلَمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ بِإِذْنِهِ. With the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Muhammad also brings the mu'mineen from the shades of darkness towards nur and light. Put that together with that very famous, unanimously accepted hadith of the Prophet, where he says, Husaynun minni wa ana min Husayn. Allah brings the mu'mineen from ulama, from darkness to nur. Rasul does the same thing, and Husayn is minni from Rasulullah. Husayn also brings the mu'mineen from darkness towards light. Although he has been killed, he has become shaheed, but this institution of Azaa is actually still his way, and his barakat that he is bringing us out of the shades of darkness towards nur constantly. Salawat And so keeping that in mind, the purpose of Azaa, the topic that I've selected is the issue of Karbala in our own life. Looking at the examples and how do we follow the teachings of Husayn ibn Ali. As I said, I had missed one Majlis of the first eve of Mohram. So tonight I'll combine the topics of the second and the third Majlis. One was about the halal sustenance, and then the following was about the law for Ahl-e-Bait and its reality. Inshallah, we'll try to combine them so that I can then reach to the normal process of the topics that I have announced earlier. Salawat. Since I'm talking to the Shias of Ali, I don't really have to elaborate that much on the issue of wilayat and law of Ahl-e-Bait. When it comes to the wila in the meaning of Muhabbat, we don't have a time for the different dimensions of wilayat. But the most common one is the issue of love for the Ahl-e-Bait, Hubbi Ali Muhammad. This concept of the wilayat of Ahl-e-Bait is actually a unanimous belief of all the Muslims, from the Shias and Sufis on one extreme to the Wahhabis on the other extreme. But Wahhabis can, say whatever they want, do whatever they want. When it comes to their books, they actually say that to love Ahl-e-Bait is part of our teachings. Because it is based on this ayat from Surah Shura, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمُوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. You hear this ayat from China. Not only that, the Prophet himself has actually declared the love for Ahl-e-Bait, especially the love for Ali, as a measure to know the iman and nifaq of an individual. Again, this is a hadith which is accepted by both schools of thought, where the Prophet says, Ya Ali, la yuhibbuka illa mu'min, wa la yubghiduka illa munafiq. Oh Ali, nobody loves you but a true mu'min, believer, and nobody hates you but a munafiq. But let us keep it in mind, not every Sunni is a mu'min. Not knowing Ali in a full extent is one thing, and to have hatred is something else. We would separate the Sunnis from the Khawarij and from the ISIS and the extreme Wahhabis. Okay, so always be clear on these issues. We are not using the level for all Sunnis in that sense. You know, there are many Sunnis who don't believe in Ali as the first Khalifa or the Wasi, but they still, have this sense of love. You know, if you look at the Sufis, for example. And so this essence of the Wila and the meaning of Muhabbat of Ahl-e-Bait is a unanimous part of Islamic faith. It is known in the technical terms. We say this is Zaruriyat al-Deen, not from Zaruriyat al-Mazhab. That's a different thing. When it comes to the love of Ahl-e-Bait, it is part of the Zaruriyat al-Deen. If there is an individual who says, I don't believe in the love of Ahl-e-Bait, is actually outside the fold of Islam. And so this is where we have to realize that when we talk about the wilayat of Ahl-e-Bait and the meaning of love for Ahl-e-Bait, this is a blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us. And it creates this ability within us, the potential to accept the divine guidance. When a person, follows the Ahl-e-Bait, he loves the Ahl-e-Bait, the demand of muhabbat and love is to try to please your mahbub. You try to actually live a life according to them. And so our thought process, our practical life should be according to the teachings of Ahl-e-Bait alayhi salatu wasalam. So let me come to the theme for tonight about rizq halal. Halal sustenance. We talked about the importance of family as the basic unit of a society. But when we talk about the survival of a human being, rizq, provision or sustenance is an essential part. Without that, we cannot survive. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from day one has given us the promise that every living being on this earth, when that entity comes to exist, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has appointed a rizq and sustenance and provision for them. Whether it's human beings or animals or other entities. We don't actually subscribe to this idea that the earth cannot sustain the human beings and therefore we must reduce the population. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has guaranteed. The problem is not that the earth is not able to provide for the human being. The problem is of the distribution. Unjust and unfair distribution, which is, depriving some from the sustenance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided. Salawat alayhi. So rizq and sustenance is a promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everyone. However, how do you go and reach to it? How do you seek that? Talab rizq is the issue here. And Allah says that process of you going to your sustenance is actually a test and trial for you. Because you have two options. Either you go by the halal way, or you become impatient and you look for shortcuts and you go through the haram way. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see. So the rizq is there. The dua that normally we recite after Namaz Isha. I don't have the time to go into a translation of that here, but I would urge you, if you recite it every night, at least go and look at the translation. You will see that the Masoom is telling us, you don't say that, oh Allah, I'm sitting here, give me the rizq and roti. You actually, in that dua, you are saying to Allah, I'm trying hard. You are the one who has appointed the sustenance. But I don't know, where is it? Is it on the sea or the land, in the desert or the forest or the mountain, or in the sky? Remember those days there was no aircraft or space traveling. And so Allah, you know. So do not put my efforts, in vain. Direct me in the place that you have fixed my sustenance. So the sustenance is there. We have to go and seek that. And the seeking itself is an imtihan It's a test and trial to see whether we reach to it in a halal way or by haram means. Salawat. When Adam and Hawa were sent down to the earth, after being the guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the very first ayat there from Surah Baqarah ayat 36 as well as 38, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Ihbatu ba'dukum li ba'd adu." Allah says to Adam and Hawa and Shaitan, go down to the earth. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرًّا وَمَطَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. Allah says, especially addressing Adam and Hawa, that you have an abode in the dunya. I have fixed the dunya as your abode. This is your home. وَمَطَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. And a provision till a fixed time. For your lifetime, I've given you provision. And so, what was there before it? And then Allah says, احبطوا منها جميعا فإما يأتينكم مني هدى. And when the guidance comes from me to you, if you follow it, then you will have no fear and no grief in the hereafter. And so we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from very beginning, He says, the human beings have the mustaqar and mata'. You have the abode and provision in this dunya. This guarantee is there. But this is where we have to realize that, in going seeking that sustenance, there could be temptation of going and doing it in the wrong way. Actually, when it comes to the story of Adam and Hawa, inshallah, details will come some other time if we get the opportunity. But it's important to keep in mind that when Adam was created and Hawa were created, they were not created to live there in the Jannah. Jannah is not that Jannah of the Akhirah. It means it was a garden that Allah had created for them. They were created for this dunya, not for that Jannah. But I'm paraphrasing here the concept, it's not in the ayat or hadith, that Allah basically told Adam, what's the hurry? Be my guest. I've made a Jannah for you, stay here. You will not have to do anything. You will not have to go and seek your sustenance. Everything is provided for you. But then he put one condition. وَلَا تَقْرَبَ هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ. Everything is for you. You are my guest. But don't go near this one tree. What was that? That was actually a preview for us. That when you go to dunya, all these mata', provision, the blessings of the material, you will see in the dunya. But remember, there will be temptation, and shaitan will use that. And so this command, which was not a Sharia command, Sharia has not yet come. It was not a guna, because Sharia comes in this dunya. That's what Allah says, فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى. When Hidayat comes to you at that time. They were in a special place. But Allah wanted to give a preview for us. See, I put your father and mother, Adam and Hawa, in a situation for you to realize that shaitan will use the attraction of the blessings to misguide. And so this was actually there as a preview for us to realize that the danger is there. Shaitan will use the shortcut in seeking sustenance as a means of misguiding. Allahumma Mohmmad wa alayhi. The most important thing is actually the hurmat of Mali Ghayr, the sanctity of the property of others. We are not allowed to use or take the property of somebody else without their permission, or we buy it from them, or if they gift us. There is nothing else. And of course, if it's a relative, you inherit from them, that's fine. But any other way of taking the property of somebody else becomes haram totally. And this was such a serious issue that you will see that even before the tabligh of Islam, Rasulullah started his preaching when he became 40 years old. Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to establish the moral credentials of Rasulullah in the eyes of the people of Mecca. Even before Islam, the Prophet was already known as As-Sadiq and Al-Amin. As-Sadiq is a personal, strength and character, quality. When we call him Al-Amin, we are referring to his interaction with others. Means he was trustworthy when it came to mal of the other people. Islam spread because of the akhlaq of Rasulullah, not because of the sword, as the other missionaries have been telling us. It was the akhlaq of Rasulullah which impressed the people at the time that they came towards him. And this was such an important issue, this amanat-dari as we call it, trustworthiness. It was such an important quality that in the eve of Hijrat, Shara Hijrat, when Rasulullah asked Ali to take his place on his bed, so that he can leave Mecca undetected by the enemies who had surrounded the house, it was not only the issue of protecting his life. Rasulullah even at that time was trusted by the mushrikeen with the amanat. People used to still give their amanat to him, even though they didn't believe in him. They still knew he was his Amin. And even at that time, Rasulullah had the amanat and trust of people. He wanted to make sure somebody like himself, who would be Amin, who would fulfill the task of giving the property of the people back to them. And that is where he asked Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali bin Abi Talib. We only know that Ali protected the life of the Prophet in Shara Hijrat. We do not realize that he also protected the honor and reputation of Rasulullah as Al-Amin. Salawat. In the journey known as Mi'raj, there is a long conversation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet. In one statement, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya Ahmad, inna al-ibada 10 ajza. Ibadat and act of worship consists of 10 parts. تسعة منها طلب الحلال. 9 out of 10 portion of the ibadat consists of seeking halal sustenance. And this is what I'm saying. Islam is not only namaz. Islam is not only fasting. Islam is not only hajj. Islam is not only going to ziyarah. Islam is not only doing the rituals. It is very much to do with our interaction with other people. From our family to relatives, to friends, the community and the society at large. Especially when it comes to the property of other people. How we seek our sustenance. Talab al-halal, according to this statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is 9/10 of the ibadah. Salawat. And then Allah says to the Prophet that if your food and drink is halal and tayyib, فَأَنْتَ فِي حِفْزِي وَكَنَفِي, then you are under my protection. You are under my shelter. And this is a very important issue. I can talk about it for a long time, but let me give you one example. We are all Shia of Ali. And Shia of Ali means somebody who is follower of Ali. Amir al-Mu'mineen is actually so much careful about what is halal and what is haram, in what he gets and what he eats and what he drinks. Just one example, which is also in Nahl al-Balagha. There was a person in Kufa, and this is the time of his Khilafah. Among those who actually later on emerged as the leader of the Khawarij. There was a case in the court of Amir al-Mu'mineen under the judges appointed by Ali. And he comes one night with a thermos, of honey, pure honey. He came to the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and Amir al-Mu'mineen looked at him. And he said, "What is this? Asilatun, am zakatun, or sadaqah? Is this a gift, or a zakat, or sadaqah?" Ali knew he is a case in court. And this is where Amir al-Mu'mineen says, فَذَلِكَ مُحَرَّمٌ عَلَيْنَا أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ. When it comes to zakat and sadaqah, this is haram for us. He says, no, la zaka wa la dhalik. No, it's neither that nor that, لكنها هدية. But Amir al-Mu'mineen knew his intention and rebuked him, and then he says something about himself. This we have to keep in mind. Where he says, وَاللَّهِ لَوْ أُعْتِيتُ الْأَقَالِيمَ السَّبْعَ بِمَا تَحْتَ أَفْلَافِهَا. By Allah, if I am given the control of the 7 heavens and everything which is under it, if I am given everything on one condition, على أن أعصي الله في نملة أسلبها جند شعيرة ما فعلته. It says, if I'm given the 7 heavens with everything underneath them, with one condition, that I disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by pulling out one wheat seed from the mouth of an ant. ما فعلته, I will never do that. How do we think about these issues? If I was in the place of Ali, I'll say, okay, I'll try one, but once I gave the whole dunya, I'll give 10. लोग कहते हैं मौलाना लॉटरी में मिल जाएगा तो हम आधा दे देंगे नसीब के लिए. We get this kind of situation. The issue is not that when you get it, what are you going to do? The issue is that the way you are getting it is halal or haram. It's not for you to then say, okay, I'll give half to Masjid Ali. No. And this is where we have to realize that we are the followers of Ali bin Abi Talib. The sustenance has been guaranteed by Allah. We have to find the right way to reach to it. The problem is of sabr. People are impatient. They want to become overnight millionaires. And when you have that kind of a thought in your mind, this is where you say, where is the shortcut? Then you will also then go and seek for the fatwa. If one Molana says haram, the other says, it's okay, pay khums on it. Well, khums is not for that. Bribing the Sharia for it. And this is where we have to be careful about it. Allah has guaranteed it is from the muqaddarat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, I'm going into all different areas here, but risk has been decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the level of risk, how much you are going to get, is fixed. But we don't know. And because we do not know what is the maximum that we can get, we have to constantly struggle and find, and trying more and more. But we have to always seek the right way. Because if you go through this way which is of impatience, becoming, overnight millionaire, this is where you'll go into the haram way. I'll just give you one more example. Once Amir al-Mu'mineen came back to Kufa, probably had gone somewhere outside the city, And he came straight to the masjid. It was not on Jamaat time. He saw somebody, outside the masjid. He said, "Can you take care of my horse? I'm just going to recite 2 rakat and come back." When he came back, he saw the horse is there, but the guard is gone. Not only he's gone, even the rein of the horse is gone. So then Amir Mu'minin took out 2 dirhams, gave to somebody else who was around. And then Ali says, go to the bazaar, and buy a rein for me. He goes to bazaar, he saw somebody, standing there selling the rein. And he bought it for 2 dirhams and brought it back, and Ali looked at it, this is mine. Then Amir al-Mu'minin said something very interesting. He says, إِنَّ الْعَبْدِ لَيُحْرِمُ نَفْسُهُ الرِّزْقَ الْحَلَالِ بِتَرْكِ الصَّبْرِ. And he says sometimes an individual deprives himself of the halal and legitimate sustenance because of impatience. وَلَا يَزِيدُ عَلَى مَا قُدِّرَ لَهُ. And he does not get anything more than what Allah had decreed. He says, I actually had this 2 dirham as a reward for this person. Because I had requested him to take care of my horse. I had made the intention that when I go back outside the masjid, I'll give him this 2 dirhams. Eventually he got the 2 dirhams. Because that was Allah's muqaddarat for his rizq. But because of impatience, he got it by the haram way, by theft. And this is where we have to realize that, when it comes to the issue of mal-e-dunya, we have to be careful about it. One more interesting conversation between Jabir bin Abdullah Ansari and Amir al-Mu'minin. Salawat alayhi.